Good evening, guys. What's up? So, welcome to the first session of the Flutter Festival event, where our facilitator, Dhritiman Roy, who's also an excellent Flutter developer as well as the member of the GDSC core team, is going to teach you about what Flutter is and will also create an entire Flutter app from scratch throughout these 5 sessions. Okay, the first 2 sessions are going to be hosted right now, and on the 13th, the next 3 sessions will be hosted next week. Okay, so before I welcome Tridiman, I'll just wait for a 1 minute more to for more people to join in, and then we will start the session. So yeah, Bikram, we are excited for the session too. So I hope I know the first years are having exam right now, so you could watch this entire session right after your exam ends because it's been recorded on YouTube. Okay, so and I also hope that you all enjoy the session very much because Titiman is an excellent Flutter developer, and this session is informative and helpful for everyone who is planning to learn Flutter or cross app development. So I guess that's it. So without further ado, let me welcome Dhritiman on the stream. So hi Dhritiman, what's up?
Hello, Faz. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah. So the stage is yours. So let me goodbye. Okay. So best of luck, Dhritiman.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So, hello, everyone. Uh, can we get a yes or yo in the chat if I am audible and visible? In the meantime, some people are really good at English. I am not some people. So, I might refer some lines in Hindi or Bengali. So, bear with me. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's start. I didn't know shit about Flutter, but now I can create my own apps. This is what I want you guys to tell after the coming sessions. Hi, I'm Dhritiman, and we will be creating an entire app from scratch in the coming sessions. The first 2 sessions will be on UI part of the app. So before jumping into the Flutter, we should know, right, why we should learn Flutter in the first place. Well, for the third and final year students who want to present their projects in the form of an app and who have a bit of programming experience, can easily learn enough Flutter in a week or two to present their projects and connect their backend with the app. And for people who are really enthusiastic about Flutter and want to get an internship job or be a freelance Flutter developer, this is the best time since the competition in the market is low, the demand is very high, and I believe the best time to board a train is just when it is starting. That way you can pick the best seat and enjoy the entire journey and become a veteran. And now not only startups but also big companies like Google, Alibaba, eBay, Toyota, Philips, Nubank, Tencent, and even Zerodha, the India's largest brokerage firm, are using Flutter and hiring Flutter developers. So since we are clear on why to do Flutter, let's see how we can create apps or learn more about Flutter. So before jumping into anything technical part, let's see what we'll be creating. So I'm sharing my screen. Is my screen visible? Okay, cool. So this is the app we'll be creating. This is a news app with Google sign-in. So we can just sign in. This is integrated with Firebase authentication. And we are fetching the data from a news API, that is newsapi.org. It's an open API. We get the app. We get the data from the API and we show it in our app. Now we can also search any news and display it with when it was published, who was the author, and stuff like that. Okay, so this is our app we'll be building. Before jumping into the cool stuff of creating the app, we have to do some briefing with the PDFs and stuff. So let me do that first. Okay, so what is Flutter? Flutter is Google's portable UI toolkit for building multi-platform applications. If you want to build Android app and an iOS app, first of all, you need to hire developers for native Android, then build a native app, and you need to hire developers separately for iOS platforms to make the iOS application. Or you can take another straightforward way, that is just make a app on Flutter and deploy it to various backends or various operating systems. No hate to Android or iOS developers; they are also very good. But if you are choosing any cross-platform application, then you should definitely consider Flutter. Flutter supports iOS, Android, web, Windows, Macintosh, Linux, and embedded. Yes, by embedded systems, I mean, for an example, Toyota is using Flutter in a car in its dashboard. So you can have multiple use cases of Flutter. You just need to configure it according to the operating system you want to deploy the app on, and that too from a single code base. So 99% of the code that you will be writing will be same, but just a few changes according to the operating system that you will be deploying the app on. Other than that, it is made using C++ KI engine, that is the backing of the Flutter. There are foundational widgets, animation widgets, mainly render objects that is in the backend of the Flutter. And mainly we will be using Material and Cupertino widgets. Now, what is a widget? In simple words, widgets are small components that when combined together makes a bigger component. It is really fast. It is the fastest cross-platform framework available in the market. It is highly productive. Now there is a thing called hot reload in Flutter. So whenever you are making a change, let's say a small slight change, you are changing the height of a container or the color of a container, you can just press Ctrl S and it will be reflected in the screen immediately. You do not need to rebuild the entire app several times to see a small change. So you just need to press Ctrl S and you will see on the app. You can make UI available in the market. Go to Dribble, select any UI, and you can make it. Or imagine of any UI that you want to make, you can make it in Flutter, because you can control each and every pixel in the screen. Yes, it is right. You can control each and every pixel in the screen, and that too, the applications will be jank free with its new updated versions of Flutter. And a beautiful thing, Flutter is open source, so you can obviously contribute to Flutter or the various packages Flutter uses. Okay, so we are done with the PPT. Now we generally do not need to learn Dart. If you know JavaScript and Java, it's a cakewalk for you. But the people who do not know Java or JavaScript, for them also Dart is not very hard. When I started learning Flutter, I never touched Dart separately. I just went on with Flutter. Later on, I had to learn Dart for writing cleaner code. But initially, when you are starting, you can just jump onto Flutter. But in this session, we will be just speed running through some of the things that Dart offers, or some of the unique things that Dart has to offer. Some common data types used in every other language also is used in Dart, such as int, double, string, and a boolean, which can have false or true. Now we can print values with the print statement. Also, We can add strings to it. And yes, also the website we are using is Dartpad. You can go here. Now, we can add strings with any other data type with a handy function called toString. Let's say we are adding C with A, but we cannot like override A since A is an integer type. So we just have to call the toString method and we are good to go. Now, let's say we have two variables and we want to add these two variables. So usually we will do something like this, right? Plus with a gap and again a plus, then task name. Well, this will do the job, but there is a easier way to do this. It is called string interpolation in Flutter or in Dart. So we just use a $sign and we write the name of the variable and whatever we want to give after that, and then another $sign. So it just treats it like a string and gives the value of whatever the variable is storing. So let's run it. Okay, so it's working. Now there are two more data types, three more data types I want to go through. One is num data type. Now it is a bit unique. Now we can actually know what is the runtime type of a data type using the runtime type getter. Let's see what is the runtime of A. Okay, initially we are getting is an int. Let's change it to a double. Let's see what we'll get. Okay, we are getting a double. This is, I mean, we can obviously get that it's a decimal point number, so we are getting a double. Let's change it to 10.0. Let's see what happens. Okay, interesting. Although it is a decimal point number, but we are getting an int. So this num type has various use cases. We will go through it in the longer run. Now, the last two data types that we will be needing in making the app is one is list. It is same as an array list in Java or a vector in C++. Now we can also add values in the list with the add function. Now we can also specify what type of list it is. Here we are using integer type, so we will specify it here as int. Now it is always recommended to specify the type, or else it can have any type. Like without this, it is actually dynamic. It can have a null value, it can have string value, but when you know for sure that you are using an integer type, integer types in the list, so you should specify. Another data structure is map, same as hash map in Java and C++. Here we have a key and a value. This is the key and this is the value. Here also we can specify exactly what data type the key will be, and we can specify what data type the value will be. Here dynamic means it can be anything. It can be string, it can be int, it can be null, it can be boolean, it can be anything. Now, a very interesting thing in Dart that is has been given after the newest version or before some of the versions is called null safety. Before knowing null safety, we need to know what is actually a null error. A null error occurs when you pass a value that is a null value but that value shouldn't have been null. So here, that without even testing the code, you can know if there is a null error or not while you are writing the code. Now this is called null safety. With this question mark, we are specifying the compiler that a can have an integer value or a can be null. So even at the time of declaration, we are specifying that a can have an integer value such as 10 or it can be null. Well, by default it is null, so we do not need to specify it as null. So what is the implementation or the use of it? Let's see. When we try to do this, Dart will not allow us. It will give an error. What the error says? Unconditional evoked when receiver can be null. It says that a can be null, so you cannot be sure while writing it. So what we can do is we can write an if statement when a is not null, then do this, or we can just do a double question mark and give a value. So this one suggests that if a is not null, then use the value of a, and if a is null, then just use a 0 as its value. Okay, two more things before we start writing the code. One is a function. It will have, let's say, two parameters, a and b, and it just returns the sum as the function name suggests. Now this can be done. Another way to declare a function is using the arrow function. Since the function we created just had a single line, so we can also declare it like this. We can write return a plus b, or simply just a plus b. Now let's call it inside a print. Okay, let's run it. As expected, we are getting a value of 30. Now let's say ये तुम्हारा बाप का compiler है. So you have not two parameters but 3-4 parameters or 5-6 parameters. Let's say you have C, you have D, you have E, you have F. Although you should not have these many parameters, according to clean code, you need to have at max 2 to 3 parameters. And if you have more than 2 to 3 parameters, you should always write a custom class and pass the class instead of all the parameters. But let's say we are having these many parameters. Dart has a handy tool called named parameters. So we just enclose everything in third brackets and it will be considered named parameters. Now since these are named parameters, how we need to call it? Let's say this is num1 and this is another one is num2. We need to specifically tell it as num1 and num2. And since these are named parameters, we also need to specify it if these parameters need to be present in when we are calling. So we need to give a required keyword. This tells Dart that yes, num1 always have to be present when the sum function is called, or we can do it as a null safe variable. So this tells that num1 can be present or num1 can be null also. So if we also remove num2 from here, so it automatically gives num2 a value of null. So here we are specifying that int value can be int, num2 value can be int, or a null value. Let's give this also a required keyword and let's run it. Okay, same as before, so it's working fine. Last thing is a class. It will have two fields. Let's say one is name and another is age. We will create a constant constructor of person. Here also we will be just calling the constructor with the fields, just normal parameters. And here we will be calling creating an object of person. Okay, we can access the values of person like from name or person.age. And in class also, we can give these parameters as named parameters. So here also we will give required, or let's say we can give this age as optional parameter. So while we are declaring these field age, we will declare it as a null safe variable. Okay, so that's it for Dart. Now, if you have installed Flutter in your system, then you can do it hands-on, which I'll be showing. But even if you have not installed Flutter in your system, for this session, you can use Dartpad. Just click on New Pad and click on Flutter and create. It will create an Flutter system for you, and you do not have to install anything or any extensions as such. You can just code here. Now, for people who have already installed Flutter, for them, just go to any directory where you want your project to be, write cmd there, and write Flutter create and your project name. Now, project name should have only one name, not two separate names. This is not allowed. So our name will be news app, but it has to be like one name. So we will give an underscore here. Flutter will create automatically your app. It will configure your app with all the basic stuff. Now let's open it in VS Code. Okay. Now, before jumping into the code, I would like to show you some extensions that if you have, that would be cool. So one is Flutter snippets, awesome Flutter snippets. You do not have to write all the code by yourself if you have this one. I will share the extension ID with you guys. So we need Dart. We need Flutter. And the last thing we do not need, but it's a cool package. You do not have to install packages externally. It's a cool extension actually, which is PubSpec Assist. You can have it, you cannot also have it. Totally depends on you. Okay, cool. This is the main file. Just I am removing all the comments. This is the main file we will be working on, but I want to create a home page. So I will create a new Dart file called homepage.dart. And here I will be creating a stateless widget. Now, there are two main widgets in Dart. One is a stateless widget. This is a stateless widget. Now, as the name suggests, stateless widget cannot be changed from within itself. Another one is stateful widget. As the name suggests, this widget can be changed from within itself. Now, we have to import material.dart package. As I showed you earlier, we use either Material or Cupertino. Cupertino is for all the iOS stuff, but we can use Material Dart also. It has all the Material Dart packages. Any UI UX designer who is in here will know about Material UI. We will be making a stateless widget of homepage. Now, for the people who are using Dartpad, you do not need to do anything. Just write my widget as homepage and change the child inside the center as homepage. Or just delete this part, and beside the home named parameter, we'll write homepage. If we run it, we'll see a hello world text here. Okay. Now there are some basic widgets that we'll be covering in this session. One is a scaffold. Now, what is a scaffold? Let's first run the app. Okay, Bikram, your question, pros and cons of using Flutter over native options. First, I will discuss the cons. One thing that native has been in support for a number of years. It has been, so native have a lot of developers also, and it has bigger community, and support is much bigger in native Android development. Also, it is a bit faster, like the fastest if you go through native development. Now, the pros of Flutter is production time is reduced, cost of production is reduced, your app from a single code base runs on multiple platforms, uh, and the community. And right now, for people who are coming into Flutter, the competition is very low, and the demand is also growing very fast. So these are the pros and cons over Flutter over native options. Okay, so this is the app we can see here. Here I will just copy this from here up till my homepage and delete this stuff. Instead of my homepage, I will just write homepage as we did in Artpad. Now, if we click Ctrl S, we can see that the thing that was just showing before has changed. And you also can see a small debug stuff here. You can remove it by writing debug show checked banner as false. So it will remove the debug stuff. Actually, it removes just the banner, nothing else. And we'll also title it as news app. Okay, so we are done with the main page for now. Let's hop on to the home page. Now, as I was saying, what is a scaffold? Whenever you open an app, you see a app bar, you see a body, and you see several stuffs that is in the main screen. Now, that main screen also has to be something, right? As in Flutter, as I told, everything is a widget. So that main screen actually is also a widget. So this scaffold is actually the main screen here in Flutter. Inside the scaffold, we can call on to named parameters such as app bar, and we can write now. What is an app bar? Let's just control and save. This part that we see in top of any app is called an app bar, as the name suggests. We will give it is a title as text. Okay, so this is a new widget, a text widget, as the name suggests, shows text on the screen. So here we will write news app, or just let's say write news, and we will style the text using the style name parameter. Here we have a handy widget called text style. From here we can change the color to, let's say, colors dot red, or we can change the font size, let's say, to 24. We can also specify the boldness of the font with the font weight parameter, and we can specify it as bold. Now with the newest versions, it also the compiler tells that all the values here are constant, so you can declare the main widget as constant. This constant keyword, as the name suggests, is any value that is given before, that is, you can get the value even before running or compiling the code. Okay, now we see that there is a small change. It shows news with red, which is looking awful. We need to get some colors here and color changes. So I already had made this app earlier. So I have some predefined colors. Let me take those colors. Just a second. Okay. Now here only, just beneath the home page, we are declaring a class called palette. It's a custom class, and we have some static constant variables. One is background, that stores the background color. One is light gray, that stores the light gray color, navy blue, gray, deep blue, same as the name suggests. Now we can create or store hex colors using this format. If you have hex color value and you want to store it in a variable, you just write 0xff and then the hex code. Also, we have got a handy tool here. Just click here and we can specify the color from here too. So let's say we want a blackish blue color. We can specify it from here and it will change the variable accordingly. Now, a static keyword is some fields that we do not need an object to access. We can directly access it from the class. Example, we can access we are creating a constructor here, but we do not need actually this constructor to access these values. We can directly access it from the palette class, like palette dot background or deep blue. Now the news color is looking a bit decent. Let's hop on to app bar for some changes. We will change the background color of app bar with palette dot background color. Also, we can see that it has a shadow in at the bottom. We do not want this shadow, so we can do is elevation. By default, if we click here, we can see that by default the elevation value is 4, but we want the elevation value to be 0. So let's do it 0. Okay. We also need the scaffold background to be same as the app background. Okay, now it's looking a bit decent. Now, the scaffold has an app bar, but the main part of the app has to be the main part of the app also has to be somewhere. Okay, we have got one question. Why do we use the override in Flutter? This we are actually, the build function is a function of the stateless widget, but stateless widget, if we go here, has a build function of its own. But we do not, this build function returns nothing. but we do not want this build function. So we have to override this build function. This override keyword says that whatever class we are extending it from, we are extending the function but making few changes with that extension. Okay, and the way to view source code is just click here, control, and click on that widget. So with that, you can actually view the comments and the source code. Okay, now moving on, we declare a body class. Here we will give a column. This is also a new widget. As the name suggests, it can have many widgets inside a column uh, in the vertical direction. So we will have a children named parameter, and we can have many, let's say, containers. A container is, as the name suggests, is just a box where we can configure things, and we can change color or the height. Let's give it a height of 100 and a width of 100 with decoration. So we gave it a height of 100, width of 100, a decoration that is a box decoration, and inside the decoration we specify that the container has to be of a color red. And let's copy and paste this a couple of times. Okay, we see a long box of multiple containers, but we cannot segregate it as such. There is a handy tool called margin. What margin does is, let's say we have a container here. Let's first give the margin. A margin is given by edge insets dot only. We just need the margin in bottom direction, so we'll give only, or you can give all also if you want margin throughout the container. Let's give it a margin of 20 with constant. Okay. So here we can see if this is the container and we want to specify that the next container or the next whatever widget should have a spacing between them, then we specify that whatever widget comes beneath the container will have a margin of 10 or 20 here. Let's give this margin to all the other containers. Okay, so this is how we can specify that inside a column, how we can specify we can have multiple containers inside a column. We can also not only have containers, but a container and a text widget. Okay, we can have like any widget in the column inside the child named parameter. Now, as we saw the app, if we visualize it, there was a search bar here just beneath the news app bar. So how can we bring the search bar there? There is a widget called text field widget. So here we can see that we got a text field widget without even writing any code, just declaring a text field widget. Now we need to style this text field widget according to whatever needs we want. But let's first make the entire structure that we saw previously, then we will style everything. We had a text that said top news. We have another column, let's say, of containers with height 100, width 100, color or palette dot light gray, and a margin of bottom 10. We will just copy and paste it a couple of times. Okay, so our basic structure, you can say that it is created, but there is flaw here. If we have some more containers, let's say 10 or 20 containers, it goes beyond the screen. Now we cannot scroll it since the column has a specific height of its own after it's being rendered on the screen. So how we can solve this issue? We have another widget called the Listview widget. Now, since this Listview widget is taking all the space other than the app bar, the search place, and the top news text, so we'll also wrap it inside a expanded widget. Now, what does expanded means? Expanded means whatever space that is left on the screen, take it. So the list view widget takes whatever space that is left other than the top news text, the search bar, and the app header. So now we can easily scroll through all the containers and stuff. Okay, so basic structure is created, and we had some padding here too. There is another widget called sized box, which is just a box or a container, we can say, but without any color or without any decoration. It just specifies the place that we have a height of, let's say, 16, and we'll also give it under the top news section. Okay, we can see another flaw here, that our left and right side doesn't have any padding. Our left and right side is just as close to the screen. So if we hold the phone, we might click something by mistake. So we should have some padding here, right? So we just right click on the column and we go on refactor. We click on refactor and we click on a widget. Now we can specify the widget. Here we will be calling a widget called padding, which specifies that it has to have a padding. So this padding is a required named parameter. Now we will give a padding of symmetric. By symmetric we mean horizontal padding and vertical padding will be same, but we do not need a vertical padding for now. Just need the horizontal padding. Okay, so now we have a horizontal padding too. Now, as we saw in the like output app, the top news was not in the middle, but in the side somewhere. By default, column thinks that it's, let's say, if this is the y-axis and this is the x-axis of the column, according in the x-axis, it will always be in the center. And here the x-axis in the column, I mean the cross-axis. The main axis of column is the vertical axis and the cross-axis of column will be the horizontal axis. So if we can specify that the cross-axis by default has a alignment by default, this cross-axis has an alignment of center, but we need to do it. Here we can see what other options we have. We have a center, we have end, we have start, we have stretch, we have values. Let's see what each of these does. Center is same as the default one. Start is just at the starting point, and end is just at the ending point of our horizontal axis. Now we need the start point. Okay, so we have reached the basic structure of the app. Now let's move on to the styling part. This is the search, but we cannot, this is the like search bar, but we cannot specify it since it doesn't say anything like is it the search bar or is it just where you input your name or input your password or whatever stuff you want. So we need to specify to the users for their user experience that yes, this is a search bar, and also for the stuff that it is not looking very good. We go here, we write decoration. Now even let's say if you do not know Flutter, you just hover here and you can see what widget actually it takes. It takes an input decoration widget with a question mark. So either it is null or input decoration. We want to give decoration, so we will give the input decoration field here. We will give some borders. This also takes, if we hover over the border, this takes an input border. But if we go to the input border, we will see that it's an abstract class, and this is an extended part or an like extended part of the abstract class of input border. So use an outline input border. As the name suggests, it just paints the outline of the border. So we will get, we will border radius we will not give. We will give a border side of color deep blue, and width, let's it be 1. We will change the color to light gray for now. Okay, now the color, as you can see, is not as we expected it to be light gray, but actually what we need to change is called the enabled border. And now since this is in focus, we also need to change the focus border. Now what is focus? If we click here, we can see that usually the text screen or the search bar gets highlighted. So we will write focus border. Same we will, it is same as outline input border. Just we will change the color to deep blue and the width, let's say, to 2. Okay, now our search bar is looking somewhat decent, but we can see that the blinking cursor also has a different color than the color we are trying to get. So for that, we will go outside the decoration and inside the text field, and we will call a named parameter called cursor color, and we will give it a color of deep blue. So deep blue actually is our primary color, you can see it here. Now we also saw that we had a hint text which told that this is the search bar or what to search, right? So here we go in hint text and we write search. Now it is looking like a search bar, but we need to do some few more changes to make it more attractive. Wouldn't it be nice if we had an icon before the search bar? Well, as I told, you can create anything and everything in Flutter. So let's create that. We will have a prefix icon that takes an icon widget. Inside the icon widget, we need to call what type of icons we need. For now, we can get the search. It is enough. And we will give it a color of light gray. Okay. So our icon is here. Our search text is here. But our search text color and the icon's color are not matching. We need to match it. So here we will have to change the hint style, which also takes a text style widget. And we need to change the font size a bit. It is very big, so we will go with 14. Okay, now we can see that our text field is almost ready. Let's type something here. Okay. We can also change the way we type the text. By that I mean we can go here and we can just type style, and we can specify like what the user will be inputting, what type of style he will be seeing, or he or she shall be seeing. Let's first try out with color red or green. Now if we type it, we can see that the text that we are seeing is in green, but we want this text also to be same as the border color. So we will give it a color of deep blue and a font size of 14. Okay, now it is showing correctly. So we are done with the styling of the search bar. Let's now style our text, which is the top news part. Yes, Harsh, you are right. The list view is same as scroll view for native developers. Now for styling text, as we were doing it earlier also, we will just call a style with a text style widget, and we will specify it a color of deep blue and font size, let's say of 22, with also a font weight of bold. 22 is a bit big. Let's go with 20. Okay, so this is looking clean. Now we need to specify what type of cards we will be showing here. We have made several containers here. Let's delete all the containers and make one container. It will have a height of, let's say, 260, and width we will give it like we want it to stretch it throughout the window. So we will give it a width of media query. Now this piece of text tells that take the entire width of the device. This gives media query dot of context dot size dot width gives the entire width of the design of the device. We can also get the entire height of the device with just changing the width to height, but let's say width. But we remembered, if you remember, we had a padding of 16 here and 16 here. As we can see, we gave a symmetrical horizontal padding of 16 on both sides. So here also the padding is 16, here also the padding is 16. So we need to subtract it from our width. Okay, now the container you cannot see because we haven't specified it any color or a child. Let's specify it a child. First let's specify, give it a color. Now we can see the container, but there is nothing inside the container. What for now we want is to show a image inside the container as we saw in the output app. So we will call a child. Now the child is something that will be present inside the container. So whatever you give, let's say a text child in, it will be shown inside the container, but we want actually an image inside the container. For that also we have a widget called image, and if you press the dot after image, we can see that we have multiple uh, functions. We have an asset function, which means if your image is stored in your device itself, then we can call it through the asset. A file, if your image is in file, then we can access it through file. Memory, by mean if your image is stored in bits, or you have just the bitwise image type of the image, then we can use in memory. Or you have an URL of the image, then we can access it through the network. Okay, now we will go to our favorite site for images and search a landscape image. Okay, this one is looking pretty cool. We will copy the image address, store it in a variable. Now, constant here has to be a static, since we are declaring it a static constructor. Now we got the image URL. We will pass, let's pass the image URL here. Okay, so the image is also present. Let's for once rebuild the app and see if everything is working fine or not. Till now we haven't rebuilt the app. We just were pressing Control Save and Control Save. So for this reason, Flutter is really fast and productive. Okay, one thing we can see that the image is short in height, so we can see the background color of the container. We do not want that. We want the image to be stretched throughout the container. For that, we have a fit named parameter that lets us fit using the box fit. Let's say what options we have. We have a contain that shows that it is same as the default one. We have a cover. This is actually what we want. Either if the image is short in height, then stretch the height. If the image is short in width, then stretch the width. But the ratio of the image has to be same. We have a fill. This actually extends the image, so tampering with its ratio of height and width. We do not want this. We have fit height. If let's say we know that the image will have a shorter height or longer width, then we will be using this one. We have fit width for fitting the image horizontally, none, and scale down. So we'll use cover. Let's see what happens. Okay, now the image is taking the entire container, which is the desired output we want. Just a second. Okay, so now we can see that we are almost done with the front home page screen, but we also need to specify the title of the news that we will be showing, right? So we cannot just have a container here. We will make a custom container that takes the value of the image, also takes the value of the title, and shows it here. So for that, we need to configure this code. We just need to copy and cut the container, make a new stateless widget called news card, and we'll paste the container values here. Now we also need to pass the image URL and we need to pass the title. Let's first pass the image URL. We will later on think about the title. Okay. Now instead of the container that we were writing, we will pass just the news card with the image URL. We will also call it as a constant. Now we whatever changes we need to do, we can do it here without so this keeps actually the main code clean, and we can do whatever changes we want here. One thing was the image. Another thing, if we saw earlier, we also were having a title, but the title was just not beneath the screen. Let's first do it beneath the container here. we'll just cut it here, call a column with a child parameter, and we will give it another container, let's say, and let's give it a width of, and a little more padding. So this time we are doing it, or let's say 2 times 32. So we will have like 32 pixels on the left padding and 32 pixels on the right padding, with a height of, let's say, 80. And this will be a text widget with the title of the news. Now we cannot like have a constant value of title here in the container. We need to pass it in the news card widget. We will be passing the title and the image URL. Apart from that, we do not need nothing. Okay, so let's test it out. Okay, so here you can see that the news title is under this container. Let's style it a bit. We can have a container with color of white, and we also want this text to be in the center. Okay, so now it is somewhat looking clearer, but it is not looking that nice as we were thinking it would be looking. So instead of a column, there is another widget called the stack widget. What this names, as the name suggests, it specifies like it is as a stack. The container is at the bottom. Then we have this next container which contains the title at the top. But we want this container with that contains the title to be just around here. So we can use a widget called position widget. We will give the bottom to be 0. This means that there is no pixel from the bottom of the screen to that container. We will give the left to be 16 and right also to be 16. Let's see how it looks. Okay, this looks decent. And we will wrap this with another container which will be having a height of, let's say, 260. And let's change this height to 200, or let's say 220. So now we will be changing the text a bit. And let's say we give it a font size of 18 and a font weight of bold. Okay. Now let's say the text is small, so we can fit it inside here. Let's say our text is not small, or a pretty big text. We can see that it is jumbled everywhere. Now this is not looking clean, right? So we have to give a padding here also. We'll give a padding of let's say 16 throughout, and we will specify here that this text column can have max lines of 2. So it just has 2 max lines, but this is not the entire title, right? So we have to specify like some dot 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 that tells the user that there is the title is a bit more. So we have another widget called another named parameter called overflow, and we can assign it as a text overflow dot eclipse that shows that this line is not complete. It is bigger. It is a bigger line, so it shows that dot dot dot. Okay. So as we can see, we are ready with the basic design of the home page. Now let's just see what will it will look like with multiple values. Okay. So with giving multiple values, we can see that there is no gap here in the middle. So we need to give a padding, or let's say margin of only the bottom part with a 16. Okay. So this is looking pretty cool. Now for this session, we will be making for this session we are almost done. In the next session, we will be creating the page where we will be actually viewing it. Next session will be on Sunday, that is 13th, and that session will also be on UI. We will be revisiting some of the stuff that we did here in the next session too. But apart from that, for this session we are done. Thank you for viewing the session. Thank you for your questions, and see you guys in the next session. And also, if you want to continue in the next session and hands-on, you want to do it hands-on, so I would like you to like install Flutter. You can go to Flutter install, and here you can see the documentation for all the Flutter install for all the operating systems. Okay.
So, hey guys, that was a very amazing session. So I hope you all enjoyed it. There's more to come in the next four sessions. Okay, and Dhritiman, you did an awesome job. And if anyone has any questions, they might ask right now. Okay, so otherwise we'll just conclude the session. So I guess there aren't any more questions. So with that, we conclude our first part of the Flutterfest event. Okay, we will see you on 13th. Okay, bye.